I started wondering, where am I going with this? Why do I feel this need to fuck all these women? What is desire? The form of this cute Asian girl, why does it have such a grip on me? Because she's the opposite of me? Is she gonna complete me in some way? I realized I could fuck a million women, I'd still never be satisfied. Maybe what I really want is to be one of these Asian girls.
Hello and welcome to the White Lotus official podcast companion to season 3. I'm Gia Tolentino.
And I'm Josh Bearman.
And, wow. What an episode. Wow. We knew that stuff was going to happen in the full moon party, but before we start talking about the episode, I have a question for you. I feel like this is a valuable opportunity for us. I'm an Asian woman in front of a white man. I want to give you a safe space to say, like, if you believe that on the inside you too are an Asian woman, you could say it now.
Right. There's a new permission structure.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we had that in this room. Okay, my real question for you is, are you sad that you didn't show up in the full moon party?
Oh, yeah. I was.
For people that maybe missed earlier episodes, Josh was on set. He's bragging, having been on set for the full moon party and more.
And I was an extra, was dancing around, but I did not get a glimpse of myself, so I was very disappointed.
I didn't see you either.
I was gripping the table. But no, we'll have to watch it again.
Yeah, we'll watch it again just
down.
for you.
Just to see.
All right, so this episode is called Full Moon Party. It is written and directed by Mike White. There is sort of two tracks happening on it. There is quieter stuff happening at the hotel with three of the Ratliffs, Belinda, Mook and Guy Talk, etc. And then everyone else is letting loose. And later in this episode, we get to talk to two queens, Carrie Coon and Parker Posey.
A big part of this episode is our three gals and Chloe, Chelsea, Lachlan, and Saxon on the party boat. I mean, we're at episode 5. It's kind of like the midpoint of the story. And it's also that part, like if you're at camp or you're on vacation, there's the moment when you're skinny dipping in the pool on ecstasy, right? This is what is happening in this episode. Everybody has just, like, the inhibitions have been shed. They've surveyed the social landscape, felt present, and now they're ready. They're going for it. I mean, it's montaged together, right? You're seeing kind of these dual images of both parties, right? And so there's sort of, on the boat, it's in stages. There's the approach to the party. It's almost kind of like the mythical passage making, right? They're crossing the water. They're talking about what to expect, and then they get to the party.
Right. You know what? I was saying last time that Saxon needs to confront, the unassimilatable other or whatever. And it's like he goes in the zone at the end of the party, right? Like I was waiting for something like this moment for Saxon when he can't, he says, he's like, I don't do drugs. I am the drug, because he can't handle drugs.
I know. He says Saxon doesn't do drugs, so it's like a classic, like a third person.
Yeah.
But Lachlan does. He goes right for it.
Immediately.
Saxon is shocked. And then I guess Saxon does do drugs because he felt the peer pressure and he does it. And I like how he's almost immediately seems like on the verge of epiphany, right, when they get to the full moon party, since he's like never, not in control, right, of his own self.
Confidence lock. Okay, that's how you get people to do what you want. Because most people don't know what they want, and a lot of them, here's a little secret, they just want to be used.
He's always like at the gym, getting his pump, drinking his protein powder, and so to be kind of like intoxicated in a real way is something new to him. Right,
and he's also constantly articulating more than anyone his framework of how the world is and how the world works. And it seems like Lachlan was like, you know what, like, don't talk about it, just be about it, Like, it's like Saxon it's as if he's living within this sort of fortress of mantras about strength and domination.
Oh, right.
But he is constantly constructing this by, like, advising other people about how he knows everything.
Oh,
and then the drug renders him nonverbal. And the drug does what these drugs do. which is a layer is removed and you have nothing but your deepest inner resources and instincts because you can't talk and have no idea what's happening. And Saxon is finding that he's kind of in awe, like he actually is left with kind of a gentle and profoundly vulnerable.
Yes.
Like Lachlan is actually, like, his inner self is much more in command when stripped away than Saxon's is. And I love to see that.
They're having their little, like, boys chat, and then Lachlan says,
One day, I'm gonna take you down. Yeah?
Come here.
and then Saxon is, I think he knows, oh, that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear from this kid. But he doesn't know what that is about to mean, because then when he is the one person who's afraid to take the drugs and does, and you get the sense even that he's not even necessarily a big drinker. He doesn't get drunk.
Right.
And he says even, like, you slow down because you got to get the ladies drunk.
Right,
so he's
right.
like, he, tosses back a few frosty ones, but he's not out there getting drunk. So to be
Oh no, yeah,
on
he's
ecstasy,
like a diet beer type.
Yeah,
You know what I
yes.
mean? Like he's
Yeah.
doing Miller High Life and alternating, to
Yeah.
And my girls, my girls, Chelsea and Chloe, are like, yeah, whatever. Like I'll do this on a Tuesday,
Yeah, right. There's like, okay,
They're like,
yeah.
it doesn't matter. Chloe and Chelsea's conversation when they are girl talking on the yacht, and Chelsea's like, he's like my child.
Right. Well, and she
Chloe's like,
says you
"He's
can't
50."
spend your life trying to rescue people.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what she's going to do.
And she's on a yacht, and she's going to a full moon party, and she's in this beautiful place, and all she can do is think about her 50-year-old boyfriend who might be about to murder someone.
Right.
The foursome at the full moon party, they're not aggressive there. They're kind of
That's true. They're
feeling
little-
out
yes, yeah.
what's going to happen later. They're sitting on the beach beholding the fireworks.
Right. They're in a little bit more of a contemplative state.
Because they're
and-
all thinking about existence, kind of, right?
Yeah.
It sort of feels like all four of them are in a space of not quite discontentment, but sort of existential transition in a little bit bit of a way, where Chloe is like, I got into this business for like money and constant attention from this man, and
the
now
relationships run its course.
the relationships run its course. And Chelsea is wondering if hers has too. Like, why am I just on the hook for this guy? And Lachlan is like, what will become of me? What is the form my power will take? And do I have any?
Yeah.
And can I exert it over my brother? And is he right about everything, or is he not? And and my sister's about to leave me, and like, what does that mean? And Saxon is like, I know exactly what the world is, and he takes this drug, and he's like, whoa.
Yeah. Right. He would have been the person that if you'd asked him, he'd be like, no, I don't question anything. And then now he does.
Yes.
But what's interesting, this might have been some kind of sense memory for me, because I had kind of a similar experience while I happened to be there when the full moon party was shooting, and it's 50,000 people. It's this ridiculous scene. It is not my scene. It's not where I ever would have wound up going, and neither was it really for most of the cast. So everybody had this amped up weird energy, like, we're going to the full moon
And
party.
what the
It's
crowd
gonna happen.
is sort of like loose at heel backpackers that are on month 7.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Like white people in Tevas.
Yes, there's people getting like blacklight painting, and like butterflies on their face, and girls wearing like fairy wings.
Right,
and
right.
Dudes like with a backpack and no shirt on.
Right.
It really is just sort of like spring break Daytona Beach, but Thai beach style.
Right.
And so, and it's ridiculous, and there's dudes breathing fire, and you get these like buckets of booze. You get like a drink, it's in a bucket,
Yeah.
And I just did have this experience where at a certain point we were like making fun of the party, kind of observing the party, and then there just was a moment where like, now I'm at this party.
Yeah, it's unironic.
And then I'm not, there's no irony anymore. We're dancing. And then that went on for hours. I had like dropped in, which is what happens in the episode, right? Like they all kind of like drop into this experience of like, okay, let's go for it.
And you did it just through the experience rather than through the candies, sweet tarts, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Says.
I don't even need drugs. I'm high on life, man.
Yeah.
I did it. And then swap over to the girls, and the party is just getting great. I mean, it's like the lights are flashing, the music is pounding, and they get onto the dance floor with the 3 Russians. This was thrilling. I found this.
I adored it.
Yes.
I adored it for so many reasons. I was thinking back to when we talked to Michelle Monaghan, and she was saying Jaclyn is very interested in sort of control, but also letting loose. And this was the episode. Like, Jaclyn is on an unarticulated journey that's nonetheless extremely clear to the viewer, right? Like, we see her at the club. She's found the party she wanted to get to the whole
right.
time.
She has
right?
engineered the perfect party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like she's found the place where she can look at herself as if someone else is looking at her, which is what this character kind of wants, right? Like she wants to be looking hot, to be looking young, to have younger hot men all around her.
And
she
watching her.
And we literally get her audience.
Yeah.
There are these like other 3 hot girls who are looking at her with great animosity. And the more they look at her with animosity and jealousy, the more she is just lusciously loving
Yeah.
it.
Oh my God, it's so good. And they're each reacting to the party in a different way.
The 3 actresses were so good. Like the entire time you can see that Leslie Bibb is uncomfortable.
Right.
Even when the other girls are dancing absolutely free of inhibition, she is conscious that she's sweaty. She's conscious that she's a little tired. You can see immediately that she's already hoping the night will be over. She's checking her watch. She's like, okay, maybe another hour and then we can just go to bed.
Now the party is the mirror.
Right. Well, and
Right?
unfortunately, Kate got
are.
assigned to Vlad, the guy with the Live, Laugh, Love mural on his chest, the silver
I know,
ring.
he had a tough life.
He had such a tough life, but he simply can't stop talking about it. They're all like, yeah, like, what a fun party. You're so hot. And he's like, my mother died when I was 12. And, like.
Right. That's true. So we can, sympathize with Kate a little bit. She got kind of the dud.
She got the dud.
But she kind of assigned herself the dud, right? Because she's the dud between the 3 of them, right?
Yes, in this context. And she's hating to be the dud.
Yes.
Kate
She's
does not
supposed to
consider
be the
herself a dud.
No.
Like she's like, I'm prettier than Laurie. Why do I have
Right.
Vlad?
Yeah, exactly right. But there's like a great satisfaction for Laurie and Jaclyn. Like I feel like I was shed a tear in the party scene watching those girls dance.
Really?
I was like, I'm really feeling it for them.
So Belinda has her lovely romantic moment. I loved that for her.
Yeah.
I really felt so happy for her.
She's having her quiet courtship with Porn Chai.
Yeah, she's like, do you guys have consent in Thailand?
Yeah. So,
But just so you know, this is consent. If that is, you guys do that here? We just started, so I'm A-okay with, it's whatever you.
That's a beautifully comic scene.
Yeah, I thought it
Her
was so
performance
sweet.
is great.
She was like, there's room in this bed.
I know, it could be this bed, it could be that bed.
Yeah.
They face an external threat, the monitor
Yes.
lizard, and then that brings them together. The tonal tension in the show is so effective by the way that it's ratcheting up at the party between the 2 different party scenes, and then every so often flashing back to the sort of quiet of the hotel and what's going on there, which is Belinda's careful sleuthing. And
she suggests calling all the police.
Yeah, exactly. Let's call all the police.
And then Fabian goes into full Swiss banker mode whenever she's like, like someone here might be a killer. And he's like, that's none of my business.
Right.
It's bad form to talk about a guest in this way. Some people here have colorful pasts. It's really not wise to stir anything up.
Exactly. You don't want to
assume.
know who the killers are.
Yeah.
The Ratliff parents and Piper are having their reduced Ratliff family dinner.
Parker Posey is really giving us so much. She's really on a lorazepam come down. She's like, you're gonna be a Nexium. You could return with a completely different set of values. And Piper's like, that's the point. But Piper also says that she feels that she needs to do this because she needs to understand what's going to make her happy.
Right. I mean, it's funny. It's like she's articulating the explicit, it's almost like the schoolgirl's version of the search, the thematic idea of the show of searching, right? She's expressing out loud in this well-articulated way what everybody else can't really figure out how to say for themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot in here about like virtue structures and ideas of pleasure and an idea of, like what everyone's personal code of ethics are and how that flings them onto this kind of mad evening. But I just thought it was really funny that enlightened Piper, ostensibly the voice of the purest version of the show's thematic searching, is, I think, quite tellingly, she's saying, I want to know what's going to make me happy, not... I mean, maybe the closest that anyone gets to saying it here is Lachlan.
But what if this life is just a test, like, to see if we can become better people?
No. What?
Whereas Piper is studying it in school and wants to go spend a year at a monastery to try to even figure out what the question that Lachlan just spontaneously presented to his brother is. Listen, I admire her sort of like A student earnest approach to learning about this other culture that is clearly going to be more meaningful to her than the world she grew up in.
Right. She understands the falsity in her parents' values with a capital V.
But Piper's like, I got to go to this place for a year to even figure out what I might want to understand about myself. Whereas everybody else is at the party and they're finding out.
They're trying,
right
they're testing it in real
it's
time.
Like, yes, another completely different form of its own transcendence, right, is
Right.
what's happening at that party or on the dance floor. And she's doing all this work to figure it out.
Or she's like, what is pleasure? What is it? You know, sitting alone in your hotel, you're like, what is it? And then everyone else is just like, well, let's try it on.
Let's find out.
Well,
right.
yeah, it's like everyone is approaching this episode with like a very clear idea of like what will make me happy, and they're either aligning with or totally at odds with the circumstances in which they find themselves. One suspects that if Piper had just gone with her siblings and done some drugs and sat on the edge of the ocean and looked at the fireworks, she would feel the feeling that she seeks when she prays and feels that presence. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like I want that for her. I was so happy for Laurie in a lot of this episode, you know, until the very end, where she is getting, you know, to hear from Valentine that she's a sexy dancer. She's whipping her hair around. She's taking the shot. She's like, I'm the girl that takes the shots. She's getting to feel cool and reckless and desired. Her top comes off. Like she gets one of my favorite situations in the world, which is when you're in a pool and someone outside the pool gives you a new drink. I'm like, wow, that's living. That when that happens, you're living. And it's 4 a.m. or whatever.
You're doing it right.
You're doing it right. And yeah, Leslie Bibb is in her full like button-up PJs, like.
You know what, guys? I think the night's over. We need our beauty sleep. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We're old ladies.
Kate throws a wet blanket on the party.
Yep. Right. Well, as the party breaks up, Laurie has a moment with Valentine, right? Like she's kind of cuddling and they have this sort of close goodbye. And Laurie, it's coherent with her character that she's not making a move. And instead, she's just in this glow of having felt desirable. And she's doing her little moves. You know, she's like doing her little moves by the pool. Second only to when Saxon, totally out of his depth, is doing like Saturday Night Fever hands at the full moon party. And I was like, not Saturday Night Fever hands at the full moon party. But then Jaclyn is back in her room. She gets a text. I actually thought, you know, my dumbass, I was like, oh my God, Harrison finally texts back and they're going to like have FaceTime sex or something. But it's Valentine. And she has been plotting behind Laurie's back the whole time. And the alliances are about to switch again. But maybe we have been saving the most shocking sexual revelation of all for last, which is that Lachlan asserts dominance over Saxon.
Right. He makes good on his promise.
By making out with him, by giving him...
Oh my God! I know your incest. It arrived.
But it arrived in the like.
That was not what you were expecting.
I never expected it to be Lachlan. I mean, we knew there was going to be incest from
something's happening.
Something, you know, the psychosexual dynamics are too.
Yeah.
But I loved, you know, despite, you know, the impulse perhaps being toxic of asserting dominance over your sibling by sexually aggressing upon them, like they got the guy that Chelsea in particular has been feeling antagonistic to do something that will kind of horrify himself the next day. And and when he takes the drug, he's like, now no one take advantage of me. You know?
Right.
It's so,
right.
What did you think when
the
that
charitable
happened?
view is that it's, you know, some surprise intimacy. I don't know. I also, I didn't expect it. So at the beginning, when they walk into the villa and they have to decide on the bedrooms, and Saxon talks about adult genitals, and you're like, ooh, the promise of incest lurks. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Like, that's not going to happen. And then here
you thought
did.
it wasn't?
No, I didn't believe it.
Yeah, Lachlan is, to me, he's the winner of this episode.
Yeah.
Hugely. Hugely. We should talk, though, about the reason why I asked you, Josh, a white man, if actually you felt that you were an Asian girl on the inside, is because of Sam Rockwell's, as Frank, his monologue in the bar to Walton Goggins. I mean, Walton Goggins is giving his face as it shifts between like, you're kidding me. And then it goes to like, whoa, you're not kidding me. And then by the end, in his mind, he's like, damn, everyone's got problems. You know, he's like, damn, I'm not the only one that's like, actually, you might be more fucked up than me.
Sex is a poetic act. It's a metaphor. Metaphor for what? Are we our forms? Am I a middle-aged white guy on the inside, too? Or inside, could I be an Asian girl?
Right. I don't know.
This is just an astonishing sequence or scene, even just the one. It's just one scene and it's one conversation, and it's this incredible monologue. And so it's like a monologue in the mode of like classic. It's like Olivier, and like it is an incredible story that he tells, and the way he tells it, and then on the look on Rick Walton-Goggins' face as he's assimilating this knowledge this new story is incredible. I also love what's funny about it is they're old friends and they haven't seen each other in a while, and there's kind of like always you see old friends like, I wonder what's different.
Yeah. Well, and the first line is
lot.
that quite a lot, and it's like he's drinking chamomile tea.
Yes,
and
that's the setup for like, oh, we're gonna learn something. He's sober now,
right?
And you always think like, oh, yeah, okay, my friend got sober. I know what that story is. Nope.
No.
Don't know what that story is.
And Frank is still enough in the life or whatever it is that he can be a fixer. He can be a purveyor of some whatever. We don't know what he gives Rick exactly, right? I mean, we can.
We don't. Yes,
we can assume, but we don't know at all. And I was wondering if and when, and probably when, this show was going to deal, because it's kind of obliquely dealt with this, the subtext of setting the show in Thailand, which, I mean, it is like a place of profound sexual exploitation by Westerners, whatever. And it was like, how are we going to get that square in the face at some point? Because it feels like we have to, and we will, and we did in the wildest way, where Sam Rockwell starts talking in the mode of all of the other guys that we've met in the show, which is just like, I like Asian girls, so I came here and I'm here to fuck Asian girls, and then this crew turns about 7 more times all the way around. The delivery of it is amazing. Like, how would we even describe the way he delivers it? It's not deadpan. It's almost like there is definitely some connection to the way that people who are sober and Al-Anon or whatever it is are accustomed to delivering.
Oh, right. He's sharing.
He's sharing. He's accustomed to, absolutely bonkers years-long periods of people's life being boiled down to 45 seconds and delivered with a completely straight face and unblinking eye contact. Right. And he's doing it here.
He's also, his delivery is very matter-of-fact, right? And he's telling him the story, but he's also so self-assured of where he is and who he is that he betrays no trace of fear about telling his friend what he tells him, which is like such a funny way to invert what his, like your Asian fetish.
Yeah.
This turns out to be different. Right? He says he starts like, oh, I have an Asian fetish. That fetish turns out to be something else entirely.
Right. It turns out that I need to put on lingerie and perfume and pretend I am an Asian girl. And also I have to pay an Asian girl to sit in the corner of the room and stare at us.
To be like another facet of my sort of projected self.
Right.
This is what I thought was just astonishing about this, because it's like Frank is like blowing Rick's mind, right? He's sitting there kind of like with his doers like, oh, wow. And it's not even like, what did I get myself into? He is just accepting this new information about his friend. And it's like this incredible monologue about his kink, which turns out to actually be this profound idea about decoupling your identity, right? Which is what the show is about.
Right.
The identity is a prison.
Actually, Frank has found out. Frank has a very particular angle on the idea of identity being a prison.
Yes, right.
And he's found a very particular solution, and it is one that it's like, oh, this man has more access to the deepest, darkest, truest parts of himself.
Right.
But also, you can't look at Frank and say, oh, he's enlightened. It's like he's still giving, like, every other person is an instrument to me, right? Like, it's like the way that he conceives of this profound truth of his sexual identity is only reached through blunt force, mass scale instrumentalization of other people's identities and bodies.
Right.
So it's like he's transcended, and yet he's deeper in the shit than anyone else, too.
It's embedded in a context that requires some external factors. It's not completely internal, even though it is about his identity and actually coming to some self-realization, I think, that the others have not had, right? There is something going on where, he says, oh, wow, well, sex is a poetic act. It's like he uses carnality as a mode of seeking. And so it's like trying to discover the infinite by getting close to death via sex while not being yourself and trying to understand yourself through other people and all this. I was like, this is a new idea.
Yeah.
Like, I had not thought of this before. And I was sure as fuck not prepared for Frank, the guy who's going to help get our guy Rick a
Tomorrow,
gun,
calling in the final
to
favor.
like deliver this new idea.
Yeah, and there's a way in which it's this very funny perversion of this Buddhist idea of reincarnation and different souls in different bodies, and that in a past life we could have been this other thing.
Right, it's true. And also just the egolessness in the throes of like pure sexual reverie, right?
Yeah.
So that's another kind of way to try to get towards this glimpse the absolute, right?
Right.
Which like Piper's seeking one way, they're seeking a different way over at the full moon party, and then Frank
Is
comes,
seeing
Frank
by being
blows the
railed
door
by
off the
men that
hinges
look-
with his way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The episode ends on Tim Ratliff with the gun.
Writing a
Tuck's been
note.
trying to get the gun back the whole time. And he's writing a suicide note, and he's going to kill himself, but he's interrupted by his wife. And so then he reveals a little bit obliquely about here's what's wrong is all the expectations. Do you
Right.
know what I've been ever since I was a kid? And then again, like the identity is a prison.
Right.
Like those expectations are what made him into the person that he is, that did the favor for the $10 million to be a pillar of the community, to be in the country club, to have the beautiful family that,
Right.
where everybody can go to Duke. And then now the agony he must be in to not be able to explain
Oh,
what
he's
this
so
is.
good this episode. This like the shift from like swaggering business dad to broken
Yeah.
sack of Play-Doh.
Sorry. It's not, I'm sorry. It's just stress.
We had learned earlier in the episode that he was an altar boy. He prays for deliverance.
Right.
He actually humbles himself for the first time in this entire plot arc. Like every other tactic that he has taken is one of evasion or confrontation. And here he prostrates himself existentially, and it's like, I can't find my way out on my own.
Yeah.
And it's like, can he be saved is the question.
Right. This being the midpoint of the show, it's the point at which all the characters have accepted where they are, and they're also making choices and like crossing the Rubicon, right? So there is some kind of built-in sense of like they're all now making these choices, and how is it going to play out for the rest of the season?
Right. It's like everyone has come in with a very fixed, verbalized, clear idea of who they are and what they are about and what value system they abide by. And these things have all been externalized in conversation. And we have watched these characters say who they are and what they believe in. You know, the girls through gossiping, the Ratliffs through this overt conversation, Chelsea and Rick through their interaction with each other. And now this has all been tested in various ways. Even Chelsea's commitment to love and connection and this eternally recurring partnership she believes she has. All of these things are tested. And the question for me is like, which characters will end the season with this thing that has been exposed just instantly recovered with the exact same facade that was there before, and
Right.
which are going to
Right.
stay cracked
Right.
open.
Right.
And I
Who
think that,
will be transformed, basically, right?
yeah, and I think that this season is opening up to that possibility of transformation more so than other ones, like inherently because of the themes that are emerging, and it's dangling the possibility of actual transformation. I mean, even in the conversations that Rick is having with the therapist, right? Like there's a who will be converted to something else and who will not. And I don't know.
Yeah. And it's also interesting. It is kind of like a meta. The show is making a commentary, which is travel in the modern age. It's about sort of vacation and like pina coladas, right? It's about reading your summer read and your Mai Tai. Whereas travel before, I don't know, the 19th century was dangerous or magical, right? All the mythical stories like you're going to go somewhere
Acquire
and
knowledge.
Acquire knowledge, learn something about yourself, be transformed, or die in glory or whatever. And that's not what travel is about anymore. And so what it's saying is like maybe it is,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you will go to a foreign place and discover something exotic, not in the colonial sense, but outside of yourself,
Yeah.
and come back a different person. If you come back at all, because of course somebody's not going to make it back. And now we'll be speaking to Carrie Coon. Welcome, Carrie Coon, to the official
Thank
White Lotus
you.
Season 3 podcast.
Like, it's so exciting. We get to do all these companion things now to TV shows. It's not just a TV show anymore.
It's a podcast.
It's a content
too.
suite.
Yes.
Okay, so the dynamic between the three girlies is longstanding. They've been friends forever. How conscious is Laurie of the power dynamic between them, and how does she think about it sort of coming into the vacation?
Oh, it's just like old friends are like family. So as soon as you're reunited, you default to your position in the dynamic, don't you? And I think what Laurie is starting to question, what it's forced into relief is Laurie's own choices about her life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's, there's always the presumption that other people are judging you, even if they're not actually thinking about you. But Laurie, I think, feels that they must all be judging and thinking about her. And she's not feeling great about her life right now.
And in this case, though, she's correct, right? As she finds out at the end of, it's like not just you think it, but she sees them gossiping about her. And that's when she has we have that great moment at the end of the first episode.
Right. And but she's also participating in that system, right? As soon as somebody walks away, we're talking about them. Mm-hmm. And of course, she has the weird pressure of having a famous friend, which is a strange, when you've known someone your whole life and then suddenly they're catapulted into the public eye, you sort of start to observe them as an outsider in a way. So she has that relationship, of course, with Jaclyn. And then, her other friend is pulling away from her ideologically, I would say, which is its own kind of shock for her. And I think she feels righteous in her positions, wrestling with what she's wrestling with at home. And she's not really been open with her friends about how hard it's been for her in her personal life. Because she's pretending everything's fine, which we all are doing.
We were sort of intrigued as we were watching the show how the sort of each two sets of the women get a chance to talk to each other.
Yes.
And so
That's
it
super
seems
relatable, I think.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
and G was like, oh, yeah, sure. Every woman is going to be able to recognize themselves and their sets of friends in this. So we were wondering, did you know a Jaclyn in high school?
I am the Jaclyn from high school. I mean, honestly, right? I'm the person from my high school who's now living in the public eye.
Right.
And so what I've received, my life is lived. I don't get recognized on the street or anything, so I'm not living that life. It's all happening on the internet. But the thing that I've actually been conscious of is that the people from my childhood are actually quite warm and loving. They'll reach out on Facebook and sort of celebrate my success because I think everybody feels a little hometown pride, right? If you come from a small town like I come from, when somebody gets out and is sort of doing well, there's something there to celebrate and you feel like you're participating in something positive. I have not received a lot of negative energy, and maybe it's because I'm from the Midwest and people aren't, as jaded as they would be like from New York when everybody went to Juilliard and only one of you got out, so I don't have that sort of thing. So I guess I'm Jaclyn, right?
But if you're not, sniping people's love interests on vacation, then you're not really the,
Yeah, right. Which I also, did. Yeah, no, I was definitely not a good friend to women for a long time. I didn't understand female friendship until really late in my life. And so in some ways, this storyline is pretty far from me because I actually found friendship with women very challenging when I was a young woman, just because of the way that I was taught. I just didn't have a relationship to what female friendship was. And so in some ways that was the most underexplored part for me in jumping into this friendship with these women, because I don't actually have a lot of old friends from my past like that. I don't have these holdover relationships in the same way.
I think what the dynamic shows, though, that even in the most natural, long-standing, old, long-founded relationships, it's still complicated. Like, it's still, there's still knives in there.
And wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
I mean, the point that Laurie is making is how little they've actually changed in so many ways. And also because... ostensibly because they're the same age, they're supposed to be occupying similar positions in their life in terms of their home lives or their success. And so inevitably you start to compare yourself. That's the world we're living in. Right. And when those women are gossiping about each other, it's all about insecurity and it's all about justifying the choices they've made and making them feel better about themselves, about where they are. Finding something to cherry pick that they've done better. It's just human nature. It's the curse. It's the curse of being a human being, It's just, you can go to Thailand, but all your stuff is there with you and you're carrying it. and unpacking
It's
it all
like
the
your
time.
character's the one at the beginning who says, "Oh, we're all mirrors of each other,"
Mm-hmm,
and
right.
we all, like when we were kids, we all saw each other in ourselves, and then,
Yes.
but as you get older, that becomes the mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, right?
Right,
And
exactly.
it's a dangerous mirror to look
It
at.
sure is. And you know, Laurie struggling with her, we think some alcoholism, right? She's looking a little old and a little tired.
They're like,
And
your doctor is not as good as our doctor.
Exactly. And I think she's, you know, she's not doing work, and we also made the choice, Rebecca Hickey and I and Michelle, my other makeup artist, we decided that Laurie would also have the wrong nail color. So like Laurie's stuff is intentionally just a little bit off.
Yeah.
Right? She didn't have time to go
Her hats are a little
shopping.
off.
She didn't pack very well. She's a New Yorker. She doesn't spend a lot of time in the resort life. So she's like, it's not quite right. And she feels it. She feels how it's just not quite right. You know, she feels like the odd man out.
I have a question for you. Playing Bertha and then playing Laurie and also being the Jaclyn of your high school friend group. I wonder if you could talk about, you know, playing the alpha, being an alpha, and then the fun, the particular fun and the nuance of playing a character like Laurie that's at the bottom of the pecking order.
Oh, that's so interesting. You know, I'm a middle child. I'm a middle child of 5. And so I've always been a linchpin, a harmonizer. I'm not, I don't feel like myself as an alpha. Now, that's not true. That's not, I can't be entirely objective about my way in the world, because I was also captain of my soccer team and class president. So clearly I am an alpha and would express myself very forcefully, but that's not the way I saw myself. And so for me, playing somebody like Bertha feels far from me. Like I'm like, no, I'm the, you know, the harmonizer. I'm the person who's bringing balance to these relationships. I'm not dominating, but that's not the way I occur to other people, I think. And so it's an interesting act of like, oh, actually, I have to sort of be willing to recognize and embrace these parts of myself that I don't actually see. That's not how I see myself. It's not part of my self-concept. But it's really fun to lean into. In that regard, Laurie actually feels much closer to who I am. I feel that in my life, I always felt like, for whatever reason, the way I grew up and being in the middle, I've always felt like a little bit left out. I always felt like left out waiting to happen. And even as feeling like an interloper in Hollywood, you know, I come from a small town in Ohio, and I always felt like everybody knew things I didn't know. On a set, in fashion, like every space I go in, I'm at a deficit. I'm operating with some deficit and I'm pretending, right? That's the imposter syndrome, kind of classic. And I think for me, that part of Laurie, I feel such tenderness for her. I like I say, because I struggled in my life with female friendship because of the way I grew up, I feel like I just feel so much love for her. Whereas Bertha always feels like I'm kind of putting on something, but it's something really delicious to put on. And to be asked to walk into a room with that kind of confidence was very instructive to me as a woman coming up in this industry. Like putting that skin on is actually really, it teaches you something about walking into any room as the person that you are.
I will say, I personally was disappointed that Laurie did not take home Valentine. So I was
or Valentine plus one of the other guys.
Yeah, right, exactly, right, exactly.
Should we just
go for both?
Yeah, she kind of doesn't go far enough, does she? But she's really having a good time. I'm glad to see that she has that moment before, you know, we go full White Lotus in the end of the season. Well, I will also say that was the first day on set for all those guys. The pool scene was their first day. Now, Valentine had been with us, you know, Arnas had been with us, but the 2 gentlemen who popped in, they just kind of came in, guns blazing, and they were so much fun. We had such a great time in the pool that night. So I want to give them a lot of credit. They're both very accomplished actors in their own countries, but that was like their first day, was to have to like jump into a pool naked in a show that had been already running for several months. So I have to give those actors so much credit. They were so playful and so much fun, and they made that a lot easier. But I do love that Mike gives Laurie this real moment where she gets to embrace the nostalgia, right? She does feel like finally the girls' trip she wanted is happening before things start to fall apart. And yeah, I was disappointed for her too. She didn't get to.
And she has that little triumphant walk when they leave.
Yes,
feeling
a tribute
herself.
to my mother,
Yeah.
a little dance.
Oh, that's
a
wonderful.
dance tribute to my mom. It's just a little off rhythmically, but yeah, it's such a fun night. It's really it's a hoot, and it's very White Lotus, right? To kind of be that irreverent and hedonistic. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you so
much. Good to see you.
Of course she's the Jaclyn.
Right. I was a little surprised she was like right away.
But then she was like, I'm the nice Jaclyn.
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm not the Jaclyn you see on screen, but
Yeah.
I am the Jaclyn in the environment of my small town setting.
Yeah. And now we're going to talk to Parker Posey.
There is no thesis.
There's no thesis?
We're here to check out this meditation center because I'm gonna live there for at least the next year.
You want to live in Taiwan?
Welcome, Parker Posey, to the official White Lotus Season 3 podcast.
Thank you.
Nice to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be
We're
here.
really excited to talk to you. And my number one question is, does Victoria Ratliff know that she's in Thailand?
I think it sounds familiar to her.
Yeah. Somewhere around.
She could be reminded about it, you know.
Yeah,
and be like,
yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, she imagine that person who doesn't know where they're going, you know, landing there. But she's had the help of her pills, and she's very strong-willed, you know. She wants to be close to her family, which is just staying in her room, getting some massage, going back to the room, ordering in, and being as cozy as she can be with her perfect family. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was wondering, was there, you know, thinking about how Jennifer Coolidge had sort of done some improv in the first couple of seasons, was there room for improv with Victoria, the sort of scratch my arm moment, you know?
Oh, right. Yeah. You know, Mike White is he's an actor too. You know, he's an actor, he's a very strong writer, and on set, he felt like an acting buddy. And a lot of the actors talked about this, where he kind of takes over, he takes what you're giving him, and he'll mirror it back to you, and then play a little as the camera's rolling, and yeah, just add whatever. So that was fun to be able to create and to work like that. I have no idea what has been edited or what has been used, because I haven't seen it, and I don't like to watch myself, but I've heard that I could trust Mike, and just like a crazy quilt, right? Like, this is how he works. He gets a lot of material, and then in the editing, it becomes the White Lotus thing that it's supposed to be. So it was a really fun way to work, and it was like an extreme sport, actually. It was kind of improvisational, but also very, you know, it was extreme. We traveled a lot, right? But we also got to play. And I was so blown away just to be in another country like Thailand. I'd never been to Asia.
At this point in the show, the sort of chickens are coming home to roost for Tim, this bad deal with Kenny, and it's not yet clear to Victoria. But he's obviously acting different, and sort of the family is under threat. But the whole time, Victoria's talking about the family's values. We have these good values, and those people at the boat, do they have good values? And so we're wondering, thinking about that, is Victoria's like recitation always of like what our families are? Is that like a true belief, or almost like a spell trying to ward off what she knows is actually a rot underneath the families?
I feel like she's living in a man's world in these conditions that are so opposed to her as a woman. Like, men and women are so different. Like, this is a dopamine-dominated family of achieving and being something that's really important, but it's not authentic. And I think she's really she's so distorted in how she's looking at her family. She's a fragmented person, spoiled, rotten. I think she came from a lot of money and was allowed to create the reality, you know, around her. But I don't think it's hers. That's a great question. I think, you know, Southern women, the archetypal, like, Tennessee Williams character, you know, for me, I thought a lot about that kind of stuff. And as a performer, being able to finally do something like that, which I love. But this, you know, Maggie the cat, you know, like a cat on a hot tin roof, and just like this passion and this, like, it's so human and it's so female. And the Southern drama of, you know, being able to live with your feelings and your needs and your passion, is just so great for TV. It's great when you travel around the world and people go, "Where are you from?" and you say America, and they come up with that Southern accent. People love to imitate it. And so these Mike White's shows and The White Lotus are a lot like the Christopher Guest movies, and our time right now is very memeable. It's like, it's not just a show, it's part of the zeitgeist, and it's that kind of show that people will bring into their homes, and then they get to kind of live through these parts. My family was like that. They loved, the Chris Guest movies, and it made them laugh, and they get to see through the characters that Mike has created, people that we've seen in real life that we kind of go like, oh my God, I can't believe that person is like that. Yet I've seen that person. I've seen that person. I know this person. So there's a glee in this world. But I think she's Victoria. I think she's drowning in a lot of ways. But she looks at her son and she sees her father, so she's like choosing these like ways to look at her reality and her world. And there's like a lot of power in that. And there's, I don't think it's been the best for her kids that she indulges herself in such a narcissistic way. But I loved being able to portray that, so that was really fun.
Yeah, there is kind of a grandeur in the way she's doing it. And I'm from Texas, so I know so well. I was like, oh, I've met a version of this family. I've been at their lake house getting kind of vaguely yelled at by the dad about my internship or lack thereof, right? But it's
and you're like, I'm not your daughter.
Yeah. But it's sort of also like the drama of the repression. I mean, there's so much power in that too. And when will it break through? And I was wondering, I mean, as you played Victoria as things escalate, to what extent does she know, especially as perhaps the lorazepam begins to run out and perhaps, what she might overhear late at night becomes a bit clearer. How did you understand that as you were doing it?
I love denial. Denial
Don't we all?
is very real, darling. And I think that's what it is like, I know it. No, I don't. I denied it.
Right, so when she's asking, is there something, she's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's an alliance. I think he has a lot on his plate in having to protect a woman like Victoria. Mm-hmm. I think the stakes of making her such a mess and someone that you think like needs a lot of help and can't exist without him, which I know he believes. But then we're like, no, this woman, the woman behind the man, right? And she's like, she's the one with the force. So it was really fun to play those shades in a couple and in a family.
We were wondering that from the beginning.
Yeah, I had a hint of a sense, like at the very end of the first episode, the Ratliffs are in their villa and they're talking and they're sort of cataloging like what we've done and what we have. And Victoria's saying, "You built all this." And I was like, is there a Lady Macbeth vibe where like there's a forceful woman back there?
Exactly, yeah. I always want to bring theater into my work and those tropes of drama. And so Mike, what he's done is he's kind of like a playwright in this way of, I don't know of anyone else who's been able to be so theatrical and classic in this Chekhovian way and this, high drama, whodunit. Like, we all love a mystery. We all love an archetype of someone that we've seen before, like, come to life. So he brings a lot of humor to that, a lot of joy to that. I mean, the jokes were so good. She has such great lines.
She has incredible lines.
Yeah.
I was screaming
Our
laughing.
collective meme has been like, we flew over the North
Pole.
Okay, but like those kinds of people that are like, where did you go today? And then they say something completely, completely different.
Okay, so we asked Jason Isaacs this question, and I feel that we must ask you, who is Victoria's favorite child?
Patrick.
Oh, we guessed wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be Lockie. Mm-hmm. What did you think?
I think that's what I would have guessed too.
Yeah.
I think Patrick, Lachlan carries her sensitivity and her shadow in a way, and that she's very tender with him and knows his sensitivity, but he reminds her of her own because she's such a narcissist.
Her own
I think she's
vulnerability.
like, I think she
Saxon
probably
has more armor.
I think she protects him intensely in her heart, you know. And with all our kids, Piper is her father's daughter. She is going to be fine, you know. But the boys are a bit more untethered or like a little wild. But there's something to, you know, I think. Saxon's bravado that it just reminds her of her granddaddy, you know, just that kind of thing. So when she sees him, she's just looking at him going, that's my grandfather. Oh my God, it's like Bubby all over again. You know, just this like joy. And there's so, I think she's got a lot of heart. You know, I think there's a lot of love there and passion. It was really fun to play.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank
on
you,
the
guys.
podcast.
Thank you
It was
so
fun to
much.
chat.
I love how she's giving sort of stage diva, you know, like the cat on a hot tin roof moment she gave us. It was
I
really
know.
good.
I know. Well, and she's like, you know, luxuriating in her blossomy blouse for a while. Yeah, that was fun. I didn't realize that is her accent.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think she grew up in
Yeah.
the South.
Yeah.
Spectacular guests this episode, if I must say so myself. And we'll see you guys for the next one. The White Lotus podcast is a production of HBO and Campside Media. This episode was hosted by Gia Tolentino and Josh Bearman. Natalia Winkleman is the managing producer. Our associate producers are Allison Haney, Anthony Pacillo, and Aaliyah Papes. Sound design and mix by Ewan Lai Tremuin. At Campside Media, our executive producer is Josh Dean. For the HBO podcast team, our executive producer is Michael Gluckstadt, senior producer Allison Cohen-Sirokach, and producer Kenya Reyes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.